Welcome to Ecuador, one of South America's most colorful and flavorful countries to travel. Ecuador is jam-packed with absolutely everything you need to have the adventure of a lifetime. Vibrant nature, colorful cultures, delicious food, and exotic landscapes. Follow us on this incredible journey as we rank Ecuador's best travel destinations. Hey there, Rumbers and Rovers, I am Miguel, and today we're going to do something very fun. We're going to rank some of Ecuador's top destinations here using a tier list so that you can make better informed decisions about where to go in Ecuador and how to squeeze as much value as you can out of your trip. So Ecuador is an amazing country located in northern South America. It's a country that is nestled in the Andes. It's very vibrant and rich in culture. Amazing landscapes. So it's very much worth it to include the country as a whole on your itinerary for South America, and very much worth it to visit just as its own country. So as you can see here, on one side of our tier list we have our categorizations. So S tier would be trip of a lifetime, a destination that would really make your trip. So that is followed by things that should be on your bucket list for Ecuador, and after that we have things that are must see. So things that are solid choices that you can't go wrong with if you choose to include them in your itinerary for Ecuador. Things that are day trips or meh, so things that, could be skippable, but if you do them, you would probably enjoy them. And things that are just a pass. So just so you guys know, this video is timestamped, so if you're interested in any particular destination or region, you can skip ahead or come back as you need. So let's start. Starting with Number 1, and Ecuador's biggest city, historic Quito. So Quito goes in, I would say, meh. So this is probably a controversial opinion, but Quito doesn't really have much. For such an old city, for such a historic city, you can pretty much be done with the downtown and things that you would want to see within a single afternoon or a day. There's really not much to the city. The downtown itself is really cool. There are tons of things to see there. But once you're done with that, you're just done with the city. It isn't the kind of city where you would want to spend a lot of time in and, go out in. There's just not much there. I wouldn't lose too much time in Quito. If you're flying in, I would probably just stay the night, see Quito the next day, and then maybe leave to some other one of these destinations according to what your travel plans are, or just see it on the way to something else. This honestly really surprised me because capital cities tend to be these hubs of culture and all these different attractions, but not Quito. Quito can be very unsafe, so that also makes it be a little less on the tier list. It is what it is. So that is followed by the city of Cuenca. So Cuenca is another historic city. It's a city that is nestled in the Ecuadorian Andes, and it's this colonial old city that still preserves its colonial flavor and architecture. Because it used to be so isolated, it kind of grew its own unique, quirky culture, and it's a very laid-back city to visit. Just a city of small pleasures, really. So I would say this is bucket list on our Ecuador trip. So it's something that you have to see, it's something that people have to experience. It's a really cool city to be in and walk around in. Although much of Ecuador can be a little unsafe nowadays because of all the different social problems that they have, Cuenca is still, not that dangerous a city, and it offers tons of different things to do. You have national parks close by, you have museums, you have churches with beautiful architecture that you can visit. There's all these different dining options. You can visit the market. So just an overall solid and enjoyable city to visit and be in. One of Ecuador's most beautiful cities. Third on our list is going to be Otavalo. Otavalo is definitely trip of a lifetime. You really can't miss this amazing city. So let me rewind a little and explain from the start. Otavalo is a city north of Quito, so in northern Ecuador, in the northern Ecuadorian Andean highlands. It's a city that is very much an indigenous city, and it's home to all these different indigenous groups. And during the summer months, in around June, the Inti Raimy starts. This is the center of the Inti Raimy festival in Ecuador. So the Inti Raimy is the Quichua or Inca festival of the sun god, Inti. During this time, Otavalo goes insane. So it's weeks and weeks of just fiesta and parties and dances and music and all the different indigenous peoples around Otavalo, especially in the surrounding rural communities. They start packing into the city and they go around from house to house or just around the town playing, strumming on their guitars and celebrating the harvest, giving thanks to the sun god Inti for another year of light and warmth and harvest and bounty. So it's just incredibly joyful. It's one of the best travel experiences I have had as somebody who has been on the road for the past 8 years. And that is really saying something. An amazing experience. So if you're going to do Ecuador, be sure to do it during the summer months, during the Inti Raimy, especially the days leading up to the actual day when the celebrations start. But they go on for weeks and weeks before and after. There's plenty of time to at least get to experience some of the different local events that they have in Otavalo. So also close to Otavalo, you have Taita Imbabura. You have this huge volcano that people can go and climb. And you also have the Lago de San Pablo, the Lake of St. Paul, right outside of Otavalo. So this lake is surrounded by all these different indigenous communities. So if you really want to get a feel for the indigenous Quichua peoples of Ecuador, which it is very rich in, you should visit Otavalo and the surrounding communities to get a sense of this amazing culture. Also, the Culche waterfall is another can't miss site within Otavalo that is very much worth it. These beautiful waterfalls that are very Instagrammable, very picture friendly. So next on our list we have Ibarra. Ibarra is a border city, really close to the border with Colombia. It's very close to Otavalo. It's kind of on the way to Colombia from Otavalo. And it's a city that I spent a couple nights in, and I thought it was a really cool city. And it is, it probably attains day trip status. So Ibarra is just kind of like a quaint little town in northern Ecuador. There's not really much there. It's more like a stopover point where you just, sleep for a night on your way to somewhere else. Maybe stay a night if you want to just kind of experience like life in a small town in Ecuador. The one thing that it does have going for it is that it's purportedly the birthplace of ice cream. People from Ibarra assert that they are the ones who invented ice cream. Southern Colombia and northern Ecuador have this traditional nieve de paila, an ice cream that has been made since ancient times, since the times of the Incas, if I'm not mistaken, where ice would be brought down from the glaciers in the mountains. You have these copper tubs that you would put syrup in from all these different fruits, and you would put the copper tub on top of the ice water and whirl it around and around and around, even as you are mixing the syrup, until it freezes into a kind of like sorbet or water-based, fruit-based ice cream. Very much worth trying if you're in the area. There are tons of different ice cream shops that still offer a traditional paila ice cream, so that is very much worth it. So that's why it's probably a day trip to do out of either Quito or Otavalo, or maybe on your way south from Colombia. Next on our list is Mindo. So Mindo is this cool little mountain town right outside, well, not right outside, but relatively close to Quito, on the way to the Pacific coast of Ecuador, and some of the other sites and destinations that you can see there, as we'll talk about in a little bit. And this is probably a must-see destination in Ecuador. What is there to do in Mindo? Mindo is up in the mountains between the ocean and the highlands where Quito is. It's cloud forests and it's surrounded by all this beautiful nature, beautiful mountains with lush tropical vegetation. So there's tons of ecotouristic activities to do here. Anything from floating down rivers to, I believe, a bit of rafting, doing high lines and zip lines in the jungle, doing forest stays, going to visit a butterfly sanctuary located inside, well, right outside of like the actual town. The town of Mindo itself doesn't have much, but there's just so much to do around it, and it's just such pleasant and beautiful weather and vegetation and surroundings. It really is very much worth a visit, especially if you're going towards the coast from Quito or back towards Quito from the coast, because it is on the way. So totally worth staying at the very least 2 nights, at the very least. Next on our list we have the town of Manta. So when you come down from Mindo into the Pacific Ocean, you have the town of Manta. And Manta is it's kind of a pass. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy my stay in Manta. The town itself doesn't really have much, but you can find things to do there. But they aren't really things that you would do in Manta as opposed to somewhere else where you would rather be along the coast. So in Manta they have a nice beach and nice long boardwalk which you can do. So that's pretty interesting. So it's like this city on the Pacific Ocean, and there's tons of seafood, and that's really worth it. They have this long strip of restaurants where you can go and have all kinds of different Ecuadorian cuisine and seafood, which is like really the thing here. But it's more of like a port city, not really somewhere where you would be. Maybe a stopover point and going around and walking around a little bit, but nothing more than that. But if you were to go further along the coast, you would reach Montañita. So Montañita is the surfer town in Ecuador, and it is, I think it's a bucket list destination. So it's one of the places in Ecuador where every single backpacker wants to go. Everybody wants to go to Montañita and surf and be at the beach and party. It's this like small hippie party town where tons of people gather. There are a couple other little beach towns close by that have a slower pace of life. They're not as party centric, as drinking heavy, you know. There's kind of a big drug scene here in Montañita, so I don't know if I would really recommend that side of it. I mean, if you guys don't know, I'm not really like a drug person. I did enjoy the parties and the techno clubs. They have this techno club that is called Lost Beach Club, which is really cool, totally worth a visit. And especially if you're wanting to go surf, that whole coast is just amazing for it. But it does draw a certain kind of person, and the locals really aren't that friendly. So it's kind of a mixed bag, kind of worth going. But I would use extreme caution when I'm there, especially if you're solo traveling and you're not with a group. But the next destination on our list is also on the coast, and I really enjoyed it. And that is Puerto López. Puerto López is trip of a lifetime material for me. So Puerto López is this fishing town on the Pacific coast. The town itself is kind of like, well, not, you know, like a typical coastal Ecuadorian town, so that's interesting in that sense, and it has tons of fishermen and some of the freshest seafood that you can get in Ecuador. The town itself is not the attraction though. This is out of where you go and see the humpback whales in Ecuador, and it is very much recommended that you do so. You can take a boat tour out of here to go see the whales when they're in season for as low as $40. So that's very cheap and totally worth it to see these amazing beautiful mammals out in the wild. Very often you can see them breaching, you can see them with their young, you know, as they're migrating, feeding in their offshore grounds outside of, you know, beyond the Ecuadorian shoreline. It's kind of like the Ibiza for humpback whales. So this is really the spot to go whale watching in Ecuador. And not only that, you can also visit the Isla de la Plata, this beautiful small island full of exotic seabirds and sea turtles and all kinds of wildlife. They call it the poor man's Galapagos because if you can't afford to go to Galapagos, which if you guys don't know can be very, very expensive, you can go to Isla de la Plata on the same tours that take you to see the whales. You can actually probably see whales on the way to Isla de la Plata. So it's a good way of getting like 2 for 1, and some of the same wildlife that you will see in the Galapagos you will also see in Isla de la Plata. So you can go snorkeling, see all these different animals, take photos of the blue-footed bobies, all these different birds. So it really is a birdwatcher's paradise. So if you're really into like ecotourism and the ocean, it really is a trip of a lifetime. I know it certainly was for me. So next on our list we have the Quilotoa. And Quilotoa, one of the most beautiful places on earth, in my opinion. It really is a trip of a lifetime to do this, especially as a loop. So the Quilotoa is this high volcanic basin that filled up with water to form this volcanic lake. So you can do a loop around this lake and get these panoramic views of it, and it is just so amazingly beautiful. There are 2 ways to get here, one of which is the easy way, which is just to take a bus up to the volcanic rim and then just walk around and just do that almost like a day trip, or maybe staying in town so you could just do that loop. But the one I did was I hiked for 3 days along the Andes on all these different roads to get from going through all these different towns and climbing up into the volcanic basin. So very much worth it. You get to spend a lot of time in the mountains and in the Ecuadorian countryside, you know, with people from these very small villages and towns. Very much worth doing. It was one of my favorite things to do in Ecuador. Totally something that you should do if you're in this country. It does take a bit of time and you do need to be reasonably fit to do it. Not as much as doing Cotacachi or some of these big, you know, some of the volcanoes and mountains that you can climb in Ecuador. Certainly a beautiful hike and certainly a beautiful multi-day hike to do. And last on our list we have the Cuicocha Lagoon, which is it's a must, I would say it's a must see and must do thing in Ecuador. It's close to the city of Otavalo, so you get there by leaving from Otavalo, heading towards a certain little town, and from that town you take a taxi up to where the trail starts and you just loop around the lagoon. And it's very beautiful views of this volcanic lagoon. It's very similar to the Quilotoa, but it's not as arduous or as long. It is a bit of a long hike, so prepare to be hiking for several hours. But you get all these beautiful views of the volcanic basin itself and of the surrounding mountains. Very much worth it to do, especially if you're going to be in the Otavalo area. This is one of the things that you have to do. So that's it for our Ecuador tier list. So there are tons of things that I didn't include in this tier list. I didn't include Galapagos, I didn't include the Ecuadorian Amazon or Baños and other different little sites. So you can also put some of these other little towns. There's just so much to see in this country, but I just didn't get to see all of those. I had a bit of a rushed Ecuador trip when I was there, and I spent over a month there. Ecuador just has such rich culture and so much nature that really is the selling point for the country. So hopefully you guys found this video to be very, very informative. Like and subscribe to our channel. It really keeps us growing. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you would smash that subscribe button and join us on our journey. Until our next adventures, stay safe amigos, keep on rambling and roving. Adios.